Hi everyone, welcome to GTech Techno Solution Private Limited. We are going to discuss about a few interview questions based on computer networks. Our first question is, define a network. The answer is, a network is nothing but a set of devices which are connected by using physical media links. So if you see over here, number of devices are connected using a media link. The network is nothing but a recursive connection of two or more nodes by a physical link, or two or more networks are connected by using two or more nodes. So a network can be a network of networks. Small networks are connected to form a big network. If you see over here, we have a network which is having a host 1 and a host 2. Your host 1 will be your source and your host 2 is the destination. And we have nodes ranging from A to H. Your host 1 has a set of data which has to be transferred to host 2. So your data can travel along different routes to reach the destination. So this is how data is transferred as packets in a network. Our next question is, what is the criteria to check the network reliability? A network reliability is measured using the following factors such as downtime and failure frequency. Downtime is nothing but the time it takes to recover from a failure, where your failure frequency is the term that is used to define the frequency when it fails to work the way it is intended to be. So these are the two criteria to check the network reliability, whether the network is reliable for transmission of data or not. Moving on to our next question, we have, what do you mean by bandwidth? Every signal has a limit of upper range and a lower range of frequency it can carry. This range of limit of the network between its upper frequency and the lower frequency is termed as bandwidth. So this will be the bandwidth of two frequencies. So the range of the network or the limit of the network is termed as your bandwidth. These kind of questions are highlighted in interviews of IT firms such as Quest Global. Moving on to our next question, we have, what is a link? A link at the lowest level is nothing but two or more computers which are directly connected by some physical medium, say a coaxial cable or an optical fiber cable. So these two mediums can be used to connect two or more computers to form a link. Such a physical medium is called as a link. The connector that we use to connect two nodes or two computers is known as your link. Moving on to our next question, we have, what is a gateway or router? A node that is connected to two or more networks is commonly called as a router or a gateway, whereas it generally forwards your message from one network to another. So that will be the role of a gateway or a router. That is, it connects two networks commonly. These pattern of questions are highlighted in interviews of IT firms like L&T and Polaris. Moving on to our next question, we have, what is DNS? The answer is, DNS stands for Domain Name System, and it is a naming system for all the resources over the internet, which includes physical nodes and applications. Your DNS is a way to locate a resource easily over a network, and it serves to be an essential component necessary for the working of internet. So to identify a particular resource, say your computer or a website, each has a DNS, that is a domain name. Moving on to our next question, we have, what is point-to-point link? If the physical links are limited to a pair of nodes, that is just two nodes, it is said to be a point-to-point link. Over here you can see that you're connecting two nodes with a link. So that is known as your point-to-point link. These type of questions are highlighted in IT firms like Oracle. Our next question is, what is Fqdn? Fqdn is the abbreviation of Fully Qualified Domain Name. That is both host name and a domain name is combined to form a Fully Qualified Domain Name, which is abbreviated as Fqdn. It is used for uniquely identifying a host within a DNS hierarchy. Moving on to our next question, we have, what is the DNS forwarder? The answer is, DNS servers often must communicate with DNS servers outside the local network. So the forwarder is an entry that is used when a DNS server receives DNS queries that it cannot solve locally. So it forwards the request to the external DNS servers for resolution. So this is known as your DNS forwarder. So the queries are forwarded to the external DNS servers, which will connect it to the internet and retrieve the resolution for the queries generated by the nodes. These type of questions are highlighted in interviews of IT firms such as Mindtree and Emphasis. Moving on to our next question, we have, you have to give a brief description of LAN. LAN is nothing but the abbreviation of Local Area Network. LAN is the connection of computers and devices over a small geographical location. It can be an office or a school or hospital or etc. A LAN can be connected to a WAN using a gateway or a router, which is used for connecting networks. Your WAN is nothing but your wide area network. Our next question is you have to give a brief description of SAN. SAN is nothing but the abbreviation of Storage Area Network. SAN is the connection of various storage devices which seems to be local to the computer. So you'll be connecting your storage devices as a network, and that is known as your Storage Area Network or SAN. Our next question is you have to give a brief description of MAN. MAN is nothing but the abbreviation of Metropolitan Area Network. MAN is the connection of loads of devices which spans to a large cities over a wide geographical area. So, if devices are scattered across the cities, then we can connect it using a MAN. Which is nothing but your Metropolitan Area Network. These pattern of questions are highlighted in IT firms such as Mindtree and Emphasis interviews. Our next question is you have to give a brief description of WAN and GAN. WAN is the abbreviation of Wide Area Network, and it is used for connecting devices and phones or printers or scanners over a wide geographical location, which may range to connect cities, countries, or even continents. GAN is nothing but Global Area Network. GAN connects system across the global communication using your satellites. So it connects across the global communication systems using satellites, that is your GAN. Our next question is, what is POP3? POP3, it stands for Post Office Protocol version 3. So it is the abbreviation of Post Office Protocol version of 3. POP is a protocol which listens to the port 110, and it is responsible for accessing the mail services on a client machine using the server from the internet. So the client can access the mail from the internet using your POP protocol. These type of questions are highlighted in interviews of Mass Tech. A POP3 protocol works in two modes, such as delete mode and keep mode. Delete mode is nothing but a mail is deleted from the mailbox after successful retrieval, then it is known as delete mode. Keep mode will keep the mails intact in the mailbox itself after successful retrieval. So that is known as your keep mode. So these are the two modes that your POP protocol offers. We have our next question over here. What do you mean by MAC address? Does it have some link or something in common to that of Mac OS of Apple? MAC stands for Media Access Control, and it is the address of the device identified at your media access control layer of your network architecture. So in your media access layer or MAC layer, you have a MAC access control, that is your media access control address. MAC address and Mac OS are two different things, if you see. Should not be confused with each other. Mac OS is an operating system of POSIX standard, and it is developed upon FreeBSD, and it is used by all devices of Apple. Hence, Mac OS and MAC address are different from each other. These pattern of questions are highlighted in interviews of TCS and Mindtree. Let us move on to our next question. What is IP? IP is a unique 32-bit software address of a particular node in a network. It is used for identifying a particular node uniquely over a network. So it is a 32-bit software address, hence that is nothing but 4 bytes. So this is an example of your IP. Our next question is, what is private IP? There are 3 ranges of IP addresses, and 3 ranges of IP addresses have been reserved for private address, and they are not valid for use on the internet. If you want to access the internet with these addresses, then you must use the proxy server or your network address translation server. On normal cases, the role of proxy server is played by your ISP, which is nothing but your internet service provider. So if you want to implement a private address, then you have to use the proxy server. If you decide to implement a private IP address range, then you can use the IP addresses from any of the following classes. There are 3 classes of them. Class A has 10.0.0.0, which is ranging between 10.255.255.255, whereas your Class B has the range to be 172.16.0.0 up to 172.31.255.255. Whereas if you see your Class C is 192.168.0.0 up to 192.168.255.255. So that defines the 3 classes of private IP address which are reserved and the range of the private IP addresses. These type of questions are highlighted in interviews of Infosys. Our next question is, what is public IP address? A public IP address is an address leased from an internet service provider, your ISP, and it enables direct internet communication. So that is your public IP address. It is used for communicating with the internet, and it is leased from internet service provider. Our next question is, what is the benefit of subnetting? The answer is, subnetting is nothing but a process of dividing a large network into the smaller networks based on layers 3 IP addresses. So here if you see, you have a large network and that is divided into smaller networks. So that is known as your subnetting. It reduces the size of the routing tables and it can be maintained easily. By implementing subnetting, you can reduce the network traffic. Broadcasting traffic can be isolated within a single logical network. So this provides a way to secure network traffic by isolating it from the rest of the network. So you have a secure network by using your subnet. These pattern of questions are highlighted in interviews of Wipro and iGate. Our next question is, what are the differences between static IP addressing and dynamic IP addressing? With static IP addressing, a computer is configured to always use the same IP address. It doesn't change. Whereas in case of your dynamic IP addressing, your IP address will change periodically and it is managed by the centralized network service. So this forms your major difference between your static IP addressing and dynamic IP addressing. These pattern of questions are asked in interviews of HCL Technologies. Our next question is, what is the full form of ADS? ADS is nothing but Active Directory Structure. A domain is defined as a logical group of network objects. It can be computers, users or devices or mobile phone devices that share the same Active Directory database. So, the structure formed by this is known as your Active Directory structure. Our next question is, what is RAID? RAID is nothing but the acronym of Redundant Array of Inexpensive Disks or Redundant Array of Independent Disks. The method of providing fault tolerance can be done by copying the contents into multiple hard disk drives. So this is done using your RAID method, that is Redundant Array of Inexpensive Disks. These pattern of questions are highlighted in interviews of Sasken and Polaris. Our next question is, what is NetBIOS or NetBEULA? NetBIOS is nothing but Network Basic Input-Output System, and it is a programming interface that allows input-output requests to be sent and received from a remote computer, and it hides the networking hardware from applications. So, it is a programming interface that allows your input-output request to be sent and received. Whereas your NetBEUI is nothing but the acronym of NetBIOS Extended User Interface, and it is a transport protocol designed by Microsoft and IBM for the use of small subnets? These kind of questions are highlighted in interviews of Hexaware and Infosys. Our next question is, what can you tell me about OSI reference model? OSI is the acronym of Open System Interconnection. The reference model provides a framework for discussing network design and operations. So how to design a network and how the operation of the network can be made even better can be discussed only after you know your OSI reference model. It has 7 logical layers, each one building on to the next. And those layers include your physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer and application layer. So 2 nodes which are connected will have these layers to be traversed in order for an application to be processed. Our next question is, what is virtual channel? Virtual channel is normally a connection from one source to one destination. Although multicast connections are also permitted. The other name for virtual channel is virtual circuit. So this virtual circuit, as you can see, is used by the nodes D, E and G and H. The data is transferred from host 1 to host 2 through the virtual circuit. Moving on to our next question, what is the difference between routable and non-routable protocols? Routable protocols can work with a router and can be used to build large networks. Whereas your non-routable protocols are designed to work on small, local networks and they cannot be used with a router. So that makes the major difference between your router and routable and non-routable protocols. Our next question is, what is logical link control? It is nothing but one of the 2 sublayers of your data link layer of your OSI reference model is defined by your IEEE 802 standard has this layer, that is your logical link layer. So one of your data link layer is your logical link layer. So the sublayer is responsible for maintaining the link between the computers when they are sending the data across a physical network. So to establish and maintain the connection, logical link control or LLC as abbreviated is used. Our next question is, you have to list down some of the protocols. We have a set of protocols over here. FTP is nothing but File Transfer Protocol. SMTP is nothing but Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. TCP is Transmission Control Protocol. Telnet is Telephone Network. HTTP is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. MTP is Media Transfer Protocol. SFT is Secure File Transfer Protocol. SSL is Secure Socket Layer. TLS is Transport Layer Security. POP is Post Office Protocol. NTP is Network Time Protocol. PPP is Point-to-Point Protocol. NNTP is Network News Transfer Protocol. IMAP is Internet Message Access Protocol. So these are some of the protocols which the computer has to follow in a network. Our next question is, what is FTP? FTP is nothing but the abbreviation of File Transfer Protocol, and it is a standard network protocol, and it is used to transfer computer files from one host to another host over a TCP based network such as your internet. FTP is built on your client and server architecture, and it uses a separate control and data connections between your client and server. So that is meant by your FTP. It is a transfer protocol to transfer files from one host to another, which serves as a client and a server architecture. Our next question is, what is SMTP? SMTP is nothing but the abbreviation of Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, and it is an internet standard for electronic mail or email transmission. SMTP is a part of the application layer of TCP/IP protocol. Using a process called store and forward, your SMTP moves your email on and across your networks. It works closely with something called as the Mail Transfer Agent or MTA to send your communication to the right computer and the right email box. So this is what about Simple Mail Transfer Protocol or SMTP. If you see over here, two clients are connected over the mail server. So this protocol is SMTP, and it has a store and a forward process. Our next question is, what is HTTP? HTTP is the abbreviation of Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and it is an application protocol for distributed, collaborative, hypermedia information systems. HTTP is the foundation of data communication for the World Wide Web, which is the expansion of www. So your HTTP acts as the foundation for your World Wide Web. Thank you so much for joining GTech on interview questions based on network. Hope you have got an idea of how a network works and its specifications.